All right. Welcome back to the live show. We are back for another one. It is currently 1:50 a.m. And of course, today's date is the 13th of August 2025. How are you doing? Yes, I wasn't going to come up here, but I'm like, all right, let me just come up here. Let me come up here, ladies and gentlemen. You know what time it is? It is your boy Genesis. Welcome back to the Genesis show. We're going to do this real fast, okay? So everybody can go to bed, all right? Because I just had a feeling. All right. All right. I had a feeling, okay? I had a feeling that should come on here. So I'm here. All right? I'm here. All right. So we're going to check out Karoline Leavitt as she has her press conference. And then we're also going to check out uh, Judge Janine Pirro also. And then whatever comes next comes next. But for now, we're going to check out Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt, the youngest press secretary, a mom and a wife. And she's been doing a great job. So we're going to go straight to the point because we are already late. So we don't want to take too much time. Let's go straight to the point. Everybody, don't forget, this is the United States. This is not the divided state. Whether you are a Democrat or a Republican, it doesn't matter. What matters is you love the United States, you believe in the United States, and you support the United States. So be kind, be nice in the comment section. See Shelly, good genes, good genes. See Shelly, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. God bless you. Salute to you. All right, let's go straight to the point. Here we go. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and put your comment in the chat. Be respectful, stay united. Nobody cares if you're a Republican or a Democrat. Just be respectful, enjoy yourself, and have fun. Here we go.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Good to see all of you here again today. On Friday morning, President Trump will travel across the country to Anchorage, Alaska, for a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The brutal war between Russia and Ukraine broke out under Joe Biden's incompetent leadership, but President Trump is determined to try and end this war and stop the killing. As the president has said over and over again, his strong preference will always be for peace and partnership, whenever those outcomes can possibly be achieved. There is no leader in the world right now who has been more committed to preventing wars or ending them than President Donald Trump. Just look at what took place here at the White House last Friday, when President Trump hosted the Azerbaijani president and Armenian prime minister and got the two leaders to sign a historic joint declaration for peace, ending a decades-long conflict that disrupted the region and claimed countless lives. In other news, we continue to see positive economic reports across the board. Today's CPI report revealed that inflation beat market expectations once again, and inflation remains stable. Overall, inflation has run at a 1.9 average annual pace in President Trump's first 6 months in office. Prices for everyday goods continue to decline. Energy prices fell in July, including gasoline, which is down nearly 10% over last year, and propane, which is down 2.5% over last year as well. Egg prices fell once again in July and are down 20% since President Trump took office. Shelter inflation, the largest contributor to overall inflation, is at its lowest level since October of 2021. Wage growth for American workers is beating inflation once again. As inflation declines, this administration continues to be wholeheartedly committed to putting more money back into the American people's pockets. American real wages are up 1.3% over last year and have increased each month since President Trump took office. And small business optimism, according to this morning's report, has also reached a 5-month high. Ignore the panicans and trust in President Trump. That is our motto here at the White House. The America First economic agenda is working. On another matter, yesterday, President Trump took bold action to finally restore law and order right here in our nation's capital. The president declared a crime emergency in the District of Columbia, federalized the D.C. Police Department, and mobilized the D.C. National Guard to end violent crime in our nation's capital. As part of the president's massive law enforcement surge, last night, approximately 850 officers and agents were surged across the city. They made a total of 23 arrests, including multiple other contacts. Last night, these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, possession of a high-capacity magazine, fleeing to elude in a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant. A total of 6 illegal handguns were seized off of District of Columbia streets as part of last night's effort. This is only the beginning. Over the course of the next month, the Trump administration will relentlessly pursue and arrest every violent criminal in the district who breaks the law, undermines public safety, and endangers law-abiding Americans. President Trump will not be deterred by soft-on-crime Democrats and media activists who refuse to acknowledge this rampant violence on our streets. He is going to make our nation's capital the most beautiful and safe city on earth, just as he promised on the campaign trail. Staying on the topic of public safety, the Trump administration continues to shatter records on border security. According to brand new numbers released this morning from Customs and Border Patrol, illegal crossings have fallen to all-time lows once again. Here were the records set in July. Again, these numbers were released this morning. The lowest monthly nationwide encounters ever, down nearly 90% from the monthly average under the Biden administration. The lowest monthly Border Patrol apprehensions nationwide ever, smashing the previous record set the prior month in June. The lowest monthly Southwest border apprehensions ever. The lowest daily apprehension average ever. The lowest single-day apprehensions ever. And for the third straight month, there were 0 illegal aliens released into the country. Let me repeat that remarkable statistic. For the third month in a row, not a single illegal alien was released by the Trump administration into the United States of America. This is historic. Under President Trump, this border is the most secure it has ever been. When you fortify the border, when you restore deterrence, and when you empower Border Patrol agents and our brave men and women in uniform to actually do their jobs to enforce our laws, like this president has, this is the incredible result. And in the interior of our country, criminal illegal aliens continue to be arrested and removed. Here are some of the criminals arrested by ICE in just the last few days. ICE Buffalo arrested an illegal alien from Jamaica convicted of attempted murder. ICE Buffalo also arrested an illegal alien from Ecuador convicted of leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. ICE Houston arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of manslaughter. ICE Newark arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of the sexual assault of a minor. ICE Dallas arrested an illegal alien from Mexico convicted of assault causing bodily injury. And already the Trump administration has arrested more than 300,000 illegal aliens in 2025. Again, more than 300,000 illegal alien criminals have been arrested in the interior of our country in the first 6 months of this administration. And despite many false reports in the media, nearly 70% of these arrests have been criminal aliens with criminal charges or prior convictions. This is success all around. This is removing the most dangerous public safety threats from America's communities and returning these individuals to their home countries. So there's been success all around. I'm sure you have a lot of questions today. I'm happy to get to them, so let's get started. And as always, we'll start with our new media seat, who is our podcast host today, Benny Johnson. Benny, why don't you kick us off, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Karoline. As a DC resident of 15 years, I lived on Capitol Hill. I witnessed so many muggings and so much theft. I lost track. I was carjacked. I have murders on my Ring camera and mass shootings. I witnessed a woman on my block get held up at gunpoint for $20, and my house was set ablaze in an arson with my infant child inside. And so to any reporter that says and lies that DC is a safe place to live and work, let me just say this. Thank you. Thank you for making the city safe, because no parent should have to go through what my family went through, having the fire department rip open their door to save their infant child. And so thank you for your work on securing this city. My question to you is this. Nancy Pelosi has attacked the president for deploying the National Guard to the city, saying that it is to cover for his incompetence. Hillary Clinton has also attacked the president for securing the city of Washington, D.C. I'd like to get your response to Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton.
Sure. Well, first of all, Benny, I'm so sorry that happened to you and your family. There have been, unfortunately, far too many victims of crime in this city, and I know the majority of residents in the District of Columbia agree with you. In fact, a new poll from the Washington Post I was reading this morning, this was released in May of 2024, so it's quite funny how many of you in the media agreed with what the president was saying yesterday, but now once the president says it, many of you are disagreeing with him. But this poll released by the Washington Post found that 65% of district residents think crime is an extremely serious or a very serious problem, and this was up from 56% last year. So the concern that you share with so many other residents in the District of Columbia is real, and that's why this president is taking action to address it. To get to the heart of your question, I think it's despicable that Democrats cannot agree that we need more law and order in a city that has been ravaged by violence, crime, murders, property theft. This should be a winning issue for all Americans. I don't understand. It's just anything President Trump does, the Democrats want to disagree with. I think the president would love to work with Democrats on this issue to bring law and order to America's cities, but unfortunately they have failed, and that's why he's taken this historic action to federalize the National Guard. And as you're seeing from last night's numbers, we already have seen success. We are removing violent offenders, we are arresting criminals, and we are removing drugs and firearms off of the streets of the city to make it safer for all of its residents.
Just a very quick follow-up to that. Given the heroic actions of a member of this administration just a few blocks from this building, will the president consider giving the Presidential Medal of Freedom to Big Balls?
I haven't spoken to him about that, but perhaps it's something he would consider. I'll ask him and get back to you, Benny. Thanks for being here. Gabe.
Thank you, Karoline. Regarding the Putin and President Trump summit on Friday, why not invite Ukrainian President Zelensky to that summit? I know the president said yesterday that he planned to speak with him right after the summit and even before, but why not invite Zelensky, and whose decision was it to not invite him? Was it the president or was it President Putin?
Well, this meeting came about because the president of Russia asked the president of the United States to meet through his special envoy, Steve Witkoff, who, as you all know, traveled to Russia to have a conversation with Putin at his request. And so the president is agreeing to this meeting at the request of President Putin. And the goal of this meeting for the president is to walk away with a better understanding of how we can end this war. And the president said at this podium yesterday when he joined all of you in the room that he hopes in the future there can be a trilateral meeting with these three leaders to finally bring this conflict to an end. But this administration has really used every lever, has taken every measure to achieve peace through a diplomatic solution. And I think the president of the United States getting in the room with the president of Russia, sitting face to face rather than speaking over the telephone, will give this president the best indication of how to end this war and where this is headed.
And another question on something that happened yesterday, but I wanted to get the White House response. A judge ruled that the grand jury transcripts in Ghislaine Maxwell's case should not be released. What's the White House response to that? And do you plan to appeal? And what do you tell President Trump's supporters who want that information released?
We think that decision is unfortunate. Of course, we moved to unseal that information because the president has said he wants to see credible evidence released. As for the appeal process, I would defer you to the Department of Justice for that.
Rachel. Thanks so much, Karoline. We are learning that President Trump spoke with Ukrainian President Zelensky. I was curious if you can share any more details about their call, and did Zelensky give President Trump any red lines, any non-starters ahead of this summit on Friday?
Look, I don't want to reveal the private conversations between the president and President Zelensky, but what I can tell you is that the president has deep respect for all parties that are involved in this conflict and are trying to bring this conflict to an end. After Special Envoy Witkoff returned from his meeting with President Putin in Russia, his first phone call was to President Trump. And President Trump's first phone call was to President Zelensky and to our friends in Europe. to keep everybody in the loop about where the United States can see moving the ball forward to end this conflict. And so we continue to be very much engaged with President Zelensky and the Ukrainians, but also our allies in Europe as well.
And then just one more for you. How does the president measure success coming out of this meeting? The president at times has suggested that Putin might be tapping him along. Is he prepared to walk out of this meeting if he senses that Putin is not serious about ending this war?
I think I just answered that question for you and what the goal and the expectation of the meeting is. And I won't jump ahead of any hypotheticals, and I'll leave it to the president to speak to all of you after the meeting, which I'm very confident he will. Steve.
Is he optimistic that a deal will emerge from this meeting, or is he simply going to listen?
I think this is a listening exercise for the president. Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Karoline, how did you settle on Alaska as the site for this? So there were some other sites being discussed. This is like it was a midpoint between the two leaders?
There were many sites discussed, but of course Alaska is a state within the United States of America. So the president is very honored and looks forward to hosting President Putin on American soil.
Last thing, is there a joint news conference planned, or will the president have a solo one? What sort of scheduling stuff?
Yeah, the mechanics and the scheduling, Steve, are still being ironed out. For Friday, we're working with our Russian counterparts to put those plans into action, and of course we'll keep you all apprised on the logistical details of Friday as soon as we get them. Charlie?
The president said at the podium yesterday twice that he was planning to go to Russia. Was that a verbal slip-up, or does he actually plan to go to Russia?
Perhaps there are plans in the future to travel to Russia, and on Friday the president will be meeting with the Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska, as you know. Phil?
Last week, the president said the CEO of Intel was highly conflicted, seeming to cite his past investment with Chinese companies that were doing business with the Chinese military. Yesterday, he called his meeting with that CEO a success. So what can you tell us about what the Intel CEO said to President Trump that changed his mind?
The president put out a statement that you cited, Phil. I will leave it at that. He shared his thoughts on that meeting and how it went, and for any further comment on that, I'll leave it to him to make.
Will the Bureau of Labor Statistics continue to put out monthly jobs reports?
Well, look, what I'll tell you about the Bureau of Labor Statistics, I believe that is the plan and that's the hope, and that these monthly reports will be data that the American people can trust. As you know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics has made massive revisions after the last several reports that they have put out. And there has certainly been a decline in the quality and the reliability of data coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and there's been an increase in revisions. And this president and the administration is finally tackling this problem that so many have talked about, and the president is actually doing something about it. We need to restore new leadership that we can trust. As you know, the president has appointed someone new to take over the BLS, and so we need to look at the means and the methods of how the United States is acquiring this very important data, and all of that is going to be done, and the goal, of course, is to provide honest and good data for the American people to make very important economic decisions on.
Thank you,
Michael.
Thank you, Karoline. Two questions, if I may. The president has talked about land swaps between Russia and Ukraine. Vladimir Putin says he wants Russia to hold on to Russian-occupied territory in eastern Ukraine. Is the White House at all concerned about the messaging that potentially giving over or allowing for Russia to maintain its occupied territory in eastern Ukraine, what that might say to other U.S. adversaries like China?
Look, right now, the President of the United States has done more to end this war than his predecessor, Joe Biden, who allowed this war to take place. This war, don't forget, happened at the result of the weakness and the incompetence of the previous administration. And so the president inherited this conflict, and he is determined to end it. And it's a very complex and complicated situation. As for the details of the plans that have been kind of tossed back and forth, I won't get into those, and I will let the president of the United States discuss those plans with the president of Russia, with our European allies, and the president of Ukraine, Zelensky himself as well. Sure, go ahead, in the green.
Thank you, Caroline. As far as the policing and security operations in
You speak up.
is there a timeline? Do we know what success looks like? And is it going to last longer than 30 days? And also, is there going to be an immigration enforcement aspect to this?
So can you speak up a little bit? The air conditioning is bumping in here for all of you today after yesterday's heater, so we've got to stock up. You're welcome. Go ahead.
Is there a timeline for the security operations here in D.C.? And also, is there going to be an immigration component to this, and what would that look like?
Look, if law enforcement officers encounter a criminal in this city, and they are an illegal alien, of course the appropriate measures to detain and deport that individual will be taken, as they should. No city should be a sanctuary for anyone other than law-abiding American citizens, and that has been the position of this administration since day one. As for the timing, we will reevaluate and reassess and make further decisions after this 30-day period is up. But within these 30 days, our entire focus is making sure that this is the most efficient operation possible and that we are removing as many criminals from the streets and we are cleaning up DC as best as we can and working with the Metropolitan Police Department to do that. I know the mayor just spoke several minutes ago. I was watching her on television, and she said that an increase of law enforcement officers on the streets will be helpful to deter crime in this city. And we look forward to working with these brave men and women of the Metropolitan Police Department to remove criminals off of our streets and to keep law-abiding citizens in the district safe. Josh.
Thank you. The president weighed in on Jay Powell again today, you might have seen. He said that he's considering allowing a major lawsuit against Powell to proceed because of the, quote, horrible and grossly incompetent job he has done. Can you tell us about that? What lawsuit is he talking about?
He's considering a lawsuit, and I won't speak on it any further. I will allow the president to do that himself.
Is it fair to say the administration is considering suing the Fed chair over this renovation?
That's what the president is saying.
Has he had discussions with anyone about this, or is this just like how advanced is this right now?
At this moment in time, the president is considering a lawsuit against the Fed, and I will leave it to him to comment further on it. Tamara, go ahead.
We talked about yesterday. We talked about the NVIDIA chips deal the president has struck as well. AMD, the 15% stake that will go to the government. Do you have any detail on how that came about? The president said he asked for 20% from NVIDIA. Did he make the same 20% ask to AMD, and or is this something the administration is looking to do with other either chips or products, going forward? Is this a model it wants to build on?
Well, look, right now it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce, and I would defer you to them for any further details on how it will actually be implemented. But again, this was another idea of the president and his brain trust on his trade team to try to, get good deals for the American people and the American taxpayer.
Did you see the report that China is discouraging use of the H20 to some companies? Since we're reporting that overnight there was private guidance sent to companies not banning the chip but urging them to steer away from it. I wonder if you have any response to that.
I haven't read the report. I will, and we'll get you a comment on it. Tamara.
Thank you. Last week, the meeting with Putin was sort of described potentially as an opportunity for a deal. Now it's a feeling out. Has there been a shift in expectations within the White House or an effort to temper expectations about what success looks like for this meeting?
I mean, look, I think both can be true, right? The president has always said he wants a peace deal. He wants to see this war come to an end. But this bilateral meeting is a bilateral meeting between one party in this two-party war, right? You need both countries to agree to a deal. The president is accepting this bilateral meeting with Putin on Friday, and I will let him speak further to it after it concludes about how he felt it went.
And could you also, completely unrelated topic, regarding the president's efforts in Washington, D.C., do you have any specifics about how homeless people will be dealt with, where they would be moved to? What does this look like?
I do, yes, and it's an important question, so thank you for raising it. The Metropolitan Police Department, with the support of the new federal agencies who have been surging on the streets of the District of Columbia, are going to enforce the laws that are already on the books here in Washington, D.C. For far too long, these laws have been completely ignored, and the homelessness problem has ravaged the city. So D.C. Code 22-1307 and D.C. Municipal Regulation 24-100 give the Metropolitan Police Department the authority to take action when it comes to homeless encampments. So homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. Again, these are pre-existing laws that are already on the books. They have not been enforced, which is part of the reason for this federalizing of the National Guard to bring in this assistance for law enforcement. While we are targeting criminals and trying to remove criminals off of the streets, we also want to make DC safe and beautiful, and that involves removing mentally disturbed individuals and homeless encampments as well. So we will be using these regulations and code that already exists to clean up our streets. And we've already had great success. Not many of you picked up on this, but the United States Park Police has actually done remarkable work in terms of removing homeless encampments from the city. Since the president signed this executive order in March, 70 homeless encampments have been removed by the U.S. Park Police. There are only 2 homeless encampments remaining in D.C. federal parks under the National Park Service's jurisdiction, and the removal of those 2 remaining camps is scheduled for this week. So the U.S. Park Police will be leading this effort alongside MPD.
Just very quickly, he had talked in one of his social media posts about moving them very far outside of the city. Is that off?
No, it's not off. We're exploring how we could do that. But again, homeless shelters, offered addiction and mental health services, or jail if they refuse are the options on the table right now. And we'll continue to explore that option.
Sure. Thank you so much, Karoline. President Zelensky said moments ago that he thinks Russia is preparing for a new offensive on at least 3 different areas of the front line. Is this something that you could confirm based on U.S. intelligence? And if the president sees that Putin is indeed planning major new offensive or moving troops, would he call off the meeting on Friday?
I'm not in a position to confirm or deny or comment on that intel at this time. Monica.
Thanks, Caroline. My question involves Russiagate. A whistleblower alleges that then Congressman Adam Schiff approved leaking classified information to smear President Trump's image during the Russiagate scandal. Does the president plan to investigate Adam Schiff, and what would accountability look like if more information confirms this report?
The president has already said he wants to see Adam Schiff held accountable for the countless lies he told the American people in relation to the Russiagate scandal. I brought Tulsi Gabbard out to this podium to talk to you about all of that, and this administration is taking accountability very seriously. As for this new FBI whistleblower report, I understand Kash Patel last night declassified a 302 FBI document showing that a whistleblower who is a Democrat, a career intelligence officer who worked for Democrats on the House Intel Committee for more than a decade, repeatedly warned the FBI in 2017 that then Rep. Adam Schiff had approved leaking classified information to smear then President Donald Trump over the Russiagate scandal. This is obviously a bombshell whistleblower report. Hopefully more people in this room will cover it as such. And I have a quote from the FBI director for all of you. He has said this: "For years, certain officials used their positions to selectively leak classified information to shape political narratives. It was all done with one purpose: to weaponize intelligence and law enforcement for political gain. Those abuses eroded public trust in our institutions. The FBI will now lead the charge with our partners at DOJ, and Congress will have the chance to uncover how political power may have been weaponized and to restore accountability." That's what the administration is focused on, and hopefully we'll see some more media reports on this whistleblower allegation. If this were reversed, if this were allegations against the president or any of these cabinet officials, I'm sure everyone in this room would cover it as such. Elizabeth, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. After yesterday's action to federalize the DC police, is the president still interested in working with Congress to end the Home Rule Act, something you talked about in the past? Senator Mike Lee has a bill on it. Is that something he's still interested in?
The president is very much still interested in working with Congress to address many of the issues that have plagued Washington, D.C., such as the cashless bail policy, which has been a complete disaster for the city. Juvenile delinquency is another major problem in the city that Congress can address. So I know Congress is on recess right now. When they get back to work to Washington, this president looks forward to having these conversations with our friends on Capitol Hill so we can work with them to make D.C. safe and beautiful again. And again, we encourage Democrats to join us in this effort. Perhaps their approval ratings would move up a little bit if they did. I saw a new poll today. Democrat approval rating is at an all-time low, 32%. If they could just stand by the basic notion of law and order, perhaps they would see that tick up a bit, and we welcome them to do that. Dasha.
Thanks, Caroline. President Trump yesterday at this podium indicated this, so has NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, that in order for peace to happen, it is very likely that Ukraine will have to cede some land to Russia. Zelensky has repeatedly said no land for peace. That's not going to happen. Has this administration communicated to Zelensky that he's going to have to change that position?
Look, I appreciate your asking that question in a different way than your colleague Michael in the back. I don't want to get into the details of these negotiations and these discussions that have taken place out of respect for where we are right now, and I'll let the president speak on it further if he wishes to.
One more about Israel. I know the president has had a call with Prime Minister Netanyahu recently. Netanyahu is planning to seize the remainder of Gaza City. What is the administration's position on this move by Israel's government?
Look, this is an incredibly complex and complicated war that, again, was inherited by this president, by his predecessor, Joe Biden. October 7th was one of the worst days in history. We saw innocent people slaughtered, murdered, kidnapped by Hamas terrorists. This administration has taken extensive time and effort and resources since Inauguration Day in January to end this conflict. We have given many flexible arrangements backed by Israel to Hamas, and unfortunately, Hamas has never agreed. Looking ahead, I will let the president speak on where he sees this going, but this is, of course, an incredibly complex and complicated situation. The administration has made our goal clear. We want to see this conflict end. We want to see the hostages released, and we've tried. The president and his national security team have given extensive effort and time to doing that.
With how Israel has used those resources and the assistance that you've provided?
Look, I'll let the president speak on the further actions that Israel may or may not be taking. Alexander, good to see you.
Good to see you as well, Caroline. Thank you. The Kremlin is expressing interest that Friday's meeting will move beyond just terms to end the war into improving bilateral relations. There's talk over how they're interested in potentially restoring direct flights between Russia and the United States. Is President Trump open to those kind of peripheral conversations, or is this directly focused on ending the war in Ukraine?
I think this conversation on Friday is focused on ending the war in Ukraine as far as the president's perspective goes. Those conversations, I think the president is interested in having, but his main priority right now is ending this war and to stop the killing that has gone on for far too long. You're welcome.
Caroline.
In the back. Go ahead.
Yeah, two questions on the economy. So first, we've had small businesses tell us that it's not foreign exporters who are eating the tariffs, it's them. And they've held off on raising prices, but soon they're going to have to raise prices. What is the White House's message to them?
The White House's message to our small business owners across the country is you have never had a better ally or friend or supporter in this White House than President Donald Trump, who is a businessman himself, who understands your concerns and who wants to restore wealth back to our country through the powerful use of tariffs. And that's what he's focused on doing, while simultaneously driving down costs. You have to remember, we are 6 months into this administration, and we had a president who had no business experience, had no idea what he was doing, and who funneled billions of wasteful spending dollars into our economy, which created the worst inflation crisis in a generation. Now this president is focused on tackling inflation, deregulating, cutting costs, cutting red tape to make it easier for small business owners to thrive. And again, the economic indicators show that we are moving in the right direction. In January, when this president showed up to the White House, the 6-month annualized core inflation rate was 3.7%. Today, 6 months later, the 6-month annualized core inflation rate is 2.4%. So we are trending in the right direction. Moving forward, since President Trump took office, for another 6 months, inflation will be tracking at 1.9% at this trajectory. You look at grocery prices, they fell, energy prices fell, fuel oil fell, ship fares fell, propane fell, butter, margarine, eggs, non-prescription drugs. You go through the list of items that are falling. And then I would also point to that report this morning showing that small business optimism has reached a 5-month high. So look, we inherited an economic mess from the previous administration, but this administration is focused on fixing it every day. And part of that is signing the largest tax cuts into law. to put more money back into the pockets of these small business owners.
Just on the BLS, they collect the inflation data, obviously. If the jobs data is not reliable, should Americans trust the inflation data?
Well, look, the jobs data has had massive revisions. We want to ensure that all of the data, the inflation data, the jobs data, any data point that is coming out of the BLS is trustworthy and is accurate, which is why the president has restored new leadership at the BLS. Sure, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, thank you.
So Gavin Newsom has said that California is going to sue in response to the government's demand for $1 billion from UCLA over the DOJ's anti-Semitism findings. Newsom has called this extortion and ransom. So I'm wondering what the White House's response is to Newsom on UCLA.
Bring it on, Gavin. This administration is well within its legal right to do this, and we want to ensure that our colleges and our universities are respecting the First Amendment rights and the religious liberties of students on their campuses, and UCLA has failed to do that. And I have a whole list of examples that I will forward to Gavin Newsom's press office if he hasn't seen them himself. Brett.
Thanks, Caroline. What was the reason that President Trump chose to move on from Billy Long as IRS commissioner?
Look, I think the president wants to see Billy Long as the ambassador to Iceland. As you know, that is where he will be headed. And the president loves Billy Long, and he thinks that he can serve the administration well in this position. For now, Secretary Scott Besson will be the acting IRS commissioner.
Timeline for announcing a new pick?
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Oh, Ed, go ahead, but then in the back. Yes.
Go in the back first.
Okay, sure.
Thanks, Caroline. One foreign policy and then one domestic question, if I may. There are roughly 30,000 children from Ukraine who have reportedly been abducted and are kind of dispersed around Russia. They've been showing up on these websites for adoption. Is their return a red line for the president in any deal ending the war?
The administration is aware of these reports. I don't want to set red lines for the president on his behalf from this podium. However, the president did encourage Ukraine and Russia to speak directly to one another in terms of these humanitarian issues, and we have seen progress. You have seen prisoners of war swapped between these two countries as a result of these direct talks, as well as children, and that remains a concern, but it's one that Russia and Ukraine need to iron out together, which is why this president has encouraged them to speak.
Okay, and then if I can, the D.C. action real quick. The president said yesterday that this is a model federalizing the National Guard that could be used to combat really high rates of crime in other cities like Chicago, LA, Baltimore. What sort of authority would he have to deploy forces like that, absent the Home Rule Act?
Look, the president is speaking about what he'd like to see take place in other cities around the country. Right now, this administration is focused on making D.C. safe and beautiful again. When the time comes, we'll talk about that. But I will note that the president wants to see all of our nation's cities be safe. But I think starting with our nation's capital is a great place to begin, and it should serve as a model for the rest of the country. Ed.
Just to bind up a few of the D.C. things, because a lot of them have been asked, but in talking with Congress about potential changes to home rule and whatever else, would he also push the House to finally pass D.C.'s budget so that it has access to all that money that it does need for policing, for schools, and for other services here in the city?
Yes, and as you know, he has done that. He put out a statement calling on the House to take up the Senate's legislation, and he stands by that position.
Let me take you back to something from last month. You guys announced the president was diagnosed with chronic venous insufficiency after his legs were seen swelling. How's he being treated for that? And while you were upfront about those health issues, curious if the White House would be willing to let us speak with his physician directly about those health issues. I know there were a lot of concerns about the last White House not making the physician available. Would the physician be available in this case?
I don't want to make that commitment on behalf of the physician, but it's certainly something we can look into and explore out of the effort of transparency, because unlike the previous White House, there is nothing to hide. You guys see this president working around the clock, literally 24/7, all of the time, and I will be happy to look into that request.
Can we at least get an update on how he's being treated for the swelling legs and for the hands and the other issues?
Look, you see the president every day. He's moving, he's working, he's continuing. There have been no adjustments made to his lifestyle.
Thanks, Caroline. I have two questions, one on D.C., but on the Putin meeting on Friday, does the president plan to meet with Putin one-on-one?
Yes, that's part of the plan. And as for the other mechanics and logistics, I will let our team speak to that when they're ironed out.
And on what's happening in D.C. with the federal takeover, what we've heard from the mayor and the police chief is that their understanding is there has been no change in the leadership structure. In the White House's view, who is in charge of the MPD right now?
If you read the executive order, it will tell you the leadership structure is as follows. We plan to work with the Metropolitan Police Department, but ultimately the chain of command is as such. The President of the United States, the Attorney General of the United States, our DEA Administrator, Terry Cole, who is now serving ahead of the Chief of the Metropolitan Police Department. And they will be working together. Nope, Terry Cole, as you heard from this briefing room yesterday, is in charge of the Metropolitan Police Department, and he's working with the chief to ensure that law enforcement officers are allowed to do their jobs in this city.
Caroline?
Yeah, thanks, Caroline. I know you said earlier the hope is to maintain monthly job reports, but the president's new nominee for BLS Commissioner E.J. Antoni recently told Fox Business that the BLS should suspend issuing monthly job reports and only issue quarterly reports until the jobs data methodology is corrected. So does the president disagree with that assessment that his nominee has said there, or suspending these monthly job reports a real option?
I think he floated the idea of possibly suspending until they can get the data and the methodology in order. And this president wants to ensure that the BLS, again, is putting out accurate and honest data that the American people can trust. Since you brought up the new commissioner, he holds a master's and doctor's degree in economics from Northern Illinois University. He's the chief economist in the Heritage Foundation's Center for the Federal Budget. And in addition to his work at Heritage, he has multiple other roles. He's been widely renowned for his work on economic issues. He's been called before Congress to testify as an economic expert. So he's a qualified individual, and the president trusts him to lead this important department. I think I have more questions. Sure, go ahead.
Given that the administration now has jurisdiction over MPD, can we expect, does that mean like personnel changes, hiring, firing? Can we expect leadership changes internally in the Metropolitan Police Department?
I just walked through what the leadership structure looks like right now.
Within the uniformed police department, right? I mean, does that mean that the Attorney General, others kind of have the ability to make those personnel decisions?
I would imagine it means they have the ability. As for any changes, I'm not tracking any. Again, we look forward to working alongside the Metropolitan Police Department, and we did that last night successfully, and we hope we can do that for the next 29 nights. Go ahead. Yes.
So a lot of reports that ICE agents detained a 15-year-old student with disabilities outside an LA high school, even leaving bullets on the sidewalk. How does the Trump administration plan to ensure parents that their children can return to school without fear of being wrongfully detained or endangered by federal agents?
Where'd you see that report?
LA Times.
Okay, well, I'll have to look into the veracity of that report. I read the LA Times almost every single day, and they are notorious for misleading the public. I'm sure there's more to that story than the way that you just characterized it. This administration wants to ensure that all school children across the country in every city, from Los Angeles to DC, can go to school safely. And that's part of this administration's effort to federalize the National Guard in Washington, to ensure that ICE is removing child predators. I just read you a list of a handful, just a handful, of the hundreds of thousands of child predators that this administration is removing off of the streets of Los Angeles and every other community across this country, because we want to ensure this is a country where American school children can be safe, where they can prosper, and where they are not threatened by violent criminals, whether they are illegal or whether they are American citizen homegrown criminals, as this president calls them. So I will gladly go check on that report, and I'll get you the facts. Thank you.
Caroline?
Thank you.
Thank you.
There she goes. Karoline Leavitt. All right. Judge Janine Pirro actually had her own press briefing. So here we go.
Tim, 29 and 24. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here today. You can on either side of me. Okay. Yeah, come over here. It's okay. I don't bite. All right. All right, you know who I am, I assume. Today we unsealed an indictment against two individuals, Jimmy Cherizier and a co-conspirator, Basil Richardson. It is a one-count indictment that was unsealed, and the one count has to do with conspiracy to violate the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, also known as IEEPA. Jimmy Cherizier is also known as Barbecue. Do we have his picture here? Yeah, okay. He is a notorious gang leader from Haiti who has orchestrated and committed various acts of violence against Haitians in Haiti. He was sanctioned in 2020 by the United States government under the Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. And that is an act that has to do with the president having the authority to sanction globally anyone who was involved in human rights abuses. Now, Cherizier is also known as Barbecue, and his indictment is the first indictment of an individual in the history of the Department of Justice who has been sanctioned under the International Global Magnitsky Human Rights Accountability Act. Now, in terms of background, Barbecue was a police officer in Haiti, but he led many campaigns of violence against Haitians in Haiti, including the notorious La Saline attack in 2018. Notorious because he both planned and participated in the killing of approximately 71 Haitians. It is a turf war that has shocked the human rights activists in the world. His co-defendant, Basil Richardson, grew up in Haiti with Cherizier. He is a naturalized U.S. citizen who is living in North Carolina. He was also indicted under that same one count, and he is indicted for sending money to Cherizier, sending money from the Haitian diaspora in the United States to Cherizier. And knowing that Cherizier was sanctioned under that 2020 Magnitsky Act. Now, apparently he was a trucker who, although he was from North Carolina, was just picked up in Texas. Now, one of the things that is extremely important that you'll be hearing about from my law enforcement partners here is that the State Department has designated a $5 million reward for information leading to the arrest and or conviction of Cherizier. Now, I want to let the public know that anyone who is giving money to Cherizier, also known as Barbecue because of his violent acts in his home country, cannot say, I didn't know that he was sanctioned by the U.S. government. They will be prosecuted, and we will fine them because they are supporting an individual who is committing human rights abuses, and we will not look the other way. Now, this office is not unfamiliar with crimes of violence in Haiti. Several months ago, we got a conviction against an individual by the name of Jolie German, who was involved in the kidnapping of 16 American Christian missionaries in Haiti. Haiti is a hot spot right now, and I don't use that as a pun on words, but there is incredible violence going on there, which is why the State Department has gotten involved and why we have made the decision to make it very clear under the Magnitsky Act that we're coming after you if you give money to Cherizier. Now, I'd like now to call upon my partners, Acting Assistant Director of the FBI, Darren Cox.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren Cox. I'm the Acting Assistant Director of the FBI's Criminal Investigative Division. I want to thank our partners here with us today and our international partners for their hard work and partnership in combating transnational organized crime, which threatens the safety and security of communities both in the United States and abroad. Under Director Patel's leadership, the FBI is focused more than ever on crushing violent crime, cartels, and gang activity every single day. Since January, the FBI, with the help of our law enforcement partners and community members, have arrested 3 top 10 fugitives. We've arrested over 19,000 criminals, and we've seized thousands of tons of narcotics, which have saved millions of lives across the United States. The American public and criminals should know our agents and our partners are using every tool available to put criminals behind bars and keep America safe, and we will not stop. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the men and women of law enforcement, backing good cops. Without hesitation, they're taking the fight directly to the criminals, and they're restoring order. These efforts are a deliberate and coordinated plan to protect our communities and confront escalating threats from foreign terrorist organizations like Viva Unsoon and its associates. Tackling these networks means addressing every link in the chain, every cell, especially in the United States. As you've heard in today's announcement, that includes a $5 million reward for key members of Viva Unsoon and Jimmy Shazier, also known as Barbecue. We know someone has information that can help end this violence, and we want them to come forward and know that they are safe in doing so. Today, I want to highlight the amazing work the FBI and our law enforcement partners do every day to disrupt and dismantle violent criminal networks, just like that of Barbecue and his cronies. Our FBI Miami office has worked closely with our international partners to track down Shazier and his Viva Soon partners and associates in the United States. On July 23rd, one of Shazier's most trusted associates and a named co-conspirator was taken into custody. Brazier Richardson was investigated by Miami, and he was arrested by our FBI Houston office without incident. Violent actors like Shazier and the rest of his criminal associates must understand there is no safe haven for them and the people like them that traffic violence in our communities. The FBI and our partners will continue to leverage all of the resources available and the expertise that we have to bring these people to justice. We urge anybody with information related to Shazier or any of his criminal network to contact the FBI through our tips line or our local field office. You can also call 1-800-FBI, and you can go online to fbi.gov/tips. Together, we will stop this violence. Thank you.
All right, and now Assistant Director of HSI, Ivan Arvello.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Ivan Arvello, Assistant Director for Homeland Security Investigations. The unsealing of this indictment marks the culmination of a nearly 3-year investigation into Jimmy Shazier's illicit activities and involved identifying Shazier's firearm procurement and trafficking networks, fundraising operations, and the movement and misuse of U.S. dollars in violation of U.S. sanctions. These actions fuel gang and terrorist operations that have oppressed and devastated the Haitian people. Shazier's shift from Haitian law enforcement to violent gang leader was marked by his alleged involvement in the 2018 La Saline massacre. This horrific event resulted in 71 murders and the destruction of 400 homes as civilians residents of La Saline neighborhood in Port-au-Prince were caught in the middle of a gang battlefield with chaos and destruction. Over the years, international organizations have linked Shazier to several additional instances of human rights abuses. Today marks a significant step in bringing his reign of terror to an end. He's a principal investigative component of DHS, responsible for investigating disrupting, and dismantling transnational criminal organizations and terrorist groups who are seeking to exploit the customs and immigration laws of the United States. HSI worked with our federal partners to identify Shazir's various methods and networks, using U.S. assets and financial institutions to fund this gang, procure weapons of war, and extend its power. This type of investigation falls under HSI's counterproliferation and export enforcement mission to detect, disrupt, and dismantle illicit procurement networks operating on behalf of foreign adversaries, terrorist groups, and transnational criminal organizations. These criminal groups utilize complex strategies to acquire American weapon systems, sensitive technology, financial assets, and other resources to commit crimes across the globe, endangering Americans both domestically and abroad. This case has been a great example of federal law enforcement agencies working together to leverage each other's strengths and unique authorities in furtherance of a common goal, promoting national security and pursuing a barbaric warlord who used our nation's resources to commit acts of violence and terror. I'd like to extend my most heartfelt thanks to our federal law enforcement partners at the FBI, the DEA, the ATF, the Department of State, the U.S. Attorney's Office for Washington, D.C., and the Department of Justice National Security Division for the invaluable partnership and relentless efforts in making this indictment happen. Thank you, and good afternoon.
And finally, Chris Landberg, State Department Senior Bureau Official.
Good afternoon. Thank you, U.S. Attorney Pirro, for hosting us. Thanks to our law enforcement partners. Again, I'm Chris Landberg. I'm the Senior Bureau Official of the Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs at the State Department. We're known as INL. Today, the Department of State, along with our federal law enforcement partners, is taking action to protect our nation, to protect the American people, and protect the hemisphere from foreign terrorist organizations, or FTOs. The Department of State is announcing a reward offer of up to $5 million for information leading to the arrest and/or conviction of Haitian gang leader Jimmy Cherizier, also known as my colleagues have said, by the name Barbecue. And there's a poster right here related to this reward offer. We're offering this reward for Cherizier under the Transnational Organized Crime Rewards Program because he is the leader of Vive Ensemble, which was designated by Secretary of State Rubio as an FTO and specially designated global terrorist organization in May of this year. As Secretary Rubio declared in his designation announcement, the age of impunity for those supporting violence in Haiti is over. We seek the public's help in bringing Cherizier to justice for not only the people of Haiti, but also to prevent the spread of Vive Ensemble's unchecked violence throughout the hemisphere, including affecting the United States. His reign of terror and mass violence against Haiti must end. The instability resulting from his actions has the potential to drive illegal immigration to our borders and increase transnational crime. The State Department will continue to apply its tools, including rewards programs, to combat the scourge of transnational organized crime and associated violence, and especially to stop the worst of the worst criminal ringleaders threatening the people of our hemisphere. So I'm going to repeat the information mentioned by my colleagues. If you have information, please contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or HSI at 1-866-DHS-2-ICE. Help us find and convict this menace to the hemisphere, Jimmy Cherizier. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions?
Yes. Given the violent crime in D.C. that is being cracked down on with this.
Okay, I'm happy to talk about violent crime in D.C., and I'm going to. I have some posters to show you. But anything on Cherizier?
Are there any plans, Janine, to send American forces to Haiti to retrieve this man?
Yeah.
So the U.S. government, in a collaborative fashion, is supporting both the Haitian National Police and the multinational security support mission to help stabilize Haiti and create the conditions conducive for the holding democratic elections in the country. That is what we are doing. We are doing this mainly through foreign assistance and through technical assistance from our law enforcement partners. That is the strategy of the U.S. government right now. So the point of the rewards offer is to to get information about these individuals, and then we are working very closely with Haitian National Police. So that is one of the mechanisms. If we can get information, the individuals can get up to $5 million. Our U.S. law enforcement colleagues will work with Haitian National Police and will arrest this individual and incarcerate him.
I had a question about the co-defendant. You said he was picked up in Texas, right? I noticed in the indictment he's a naturalized citizen, and there's been an effort by this administration to, in some cases, denaturalize people who are convicted of crimes. Is that something on the table that you'll be looking to do once he goes through the judicial process?
Well, I think it's a little too early now to really comment on that. I think right now our goal is to get a conviction here, and then we'll make a decision as to what's appropriate. There's a lot of steps before you even get to that. Anything else on Cherizier?
Do you plan to indict other Haitian gang leaders? Is this just the beginning? And do you have any sense of where he might be?
If we knew where he was, I wouldn't tell you. I'd go over there myself. No. Right. That was a joke. We certainly have some information, but, we need whatever information we can get from the public. We don't have him in our custody. That's all I can say right now. Do you want to add anything to that, guys? Okay. All right. Greg, anything? All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
With that.
Wait, don't take the posters just yet. Can we get some pictures? Thank you.
Are you done with this one? Yep, no, hold on a second. Give him that one if he wants to look at that. Put that over there. Can you help Sloan?
Sure.
I want to put that over there. Put this up. Thanks. Thank you very much. All right. Are you done? Over here?
We'll have them up here for you guys to shoot afterwards.
Yeah, they'll be here. You can take a look at them. There has been... There's been a great deal of discussion.
Can we get you the mic?
You want me at the mic?
If you could hold that.
There's been a great deal of discussion about crime in the district. And the other day, I wanted to get a sense of what is actually happening in the District of Columbia. I asked for the number of teens who have been shot and killed by gunfire. Teens, everyone under the age of 20. As you can see, in 2024, we have, I believe I said it was, how many? Yeah. As you can see, in 2024, we have 29 individuals who were shot and killed in the district, all teens, some as young as 3 years of age, okay, because of gunfire. Some of these cases are solved, some of them are not solved. But what this makes clear to me is that there is a whole community that is suffering because of the violent crime in this district. And anyone who wants to tell me the crime is down and that we don't need an emergency focus on crimes of violence, all they need to do is take a look at this and talk to the loved ones and the family members of these individuals, all shot and killed long before their time. Now, over here are the individuals who were shot and killed under the age of 20, all teenagers in 2025. And the number here is 16. Again, all members of the minority community here. I don't know how many of these cases have been solved, but what I can tell you is, again, it's guns on the streets. It's individuals who are not concerned about accountability, who don't have any reason to fear law enforcement. I am here today to tell you that on behalf of all of these victims, all of these families, that they're going to be accountable, that we are going to make a difference, and that we are going to make sure that law enforcement is focused on these innocent, now silent victims of crime in the district. Anywhere else? All I know is we rank in deaths. 2 years ago, we were one of the fourth highest. We were the fourth highest in the United States. I don't need any more statistics. All I need are people to recognize that these were vibrant human beings cut down because of illegal guns. I guarantee you that every one of these shootings was with an illegal gun. All right? And I guarantee you that every one of these individuals was shot and killed by someone who felt that they were never going to be caught. And I want to send a message that we are going to catch you, that we are going to change the laws, that if you're 14, 15, 16, 17, we're going to bring you into the justice system. No more of this D.C., council, if they're under 16 or if they're under 19 or if they're under 25, we'll give them probation. No more. I'm done with that.
Guns on the
hurdles that you face, and you're just talking about it right there, but what can you conceivably do as the D.C. U.S. Attorney to address those laws, address the D.C. crime lab, which is not accredited, and also at the same time address some of the prosecutorial issues you talked about?
Okay. Those are great questions. Number one, the D.C. Crime Lab is now accredited and validated very recently. So Dr. Diaz has communicated that to us, and we are working with the D.C. Crime Lab. Our concern is making sure that we have enough people who are able to analyze the DNA and all of the testing that we need to have done. That's number one. Number two, as it relates to prosecution, I have been very clear that Title 16 is not enough. Under Title 16, if you are 16 or 17 years of age, we can get you for rape 1, murder, robbery 1, burglary 1. But if you shoot someone and don't kill them, I don't have jurisdiction. It goes to the Attorney General, the State Attorney General, Brian Schwab, and the focus is family court rehabilitation. Now, I was a family court judge in New York for a short period of time. The mission there is not punishment, it's rehabilitation, as evidenced by, do we have those posters? Yeah, we had a poster with what you get is yoga, and you get ice cream socials in family court. Well, I'm done with yoga and ice cream socials. We've got to change the law to bring them into the justice system. We've got to get rid of the 3 statutes or 3 laws passed by the D.C. Council. Number one is a Youth Rehabilitation Act, where you basically say with the Youth Rehabilitation Act that what we're going to do is we're going to say, if you're sentenced and you're under the age of 25, that the judge can give you probation irrespective of what the crime is. That's nonsense. And that's why a judge, and you're tired of hearing about me say this, that's why a judge gave a 19-year-old 2-3 weeks ago, and I wrote an op-ed piece, gave a 19-year-old probation, and I understand it's 2 years probation to go to college with no mandate, for getting on a public bus with an illegal gun, shooting an individual in the chest, which to me is intent to kill. And he walked away, after we convicted him, he walked away with no jail time. If that's what you want in this district, then I'm the wrong person to be United States Attorney. Number one, the Incarceration Reduction Act. The Incarceration Reduction Act that the D.C. left-leaning council passed says if you're 25 years old and you were sentenced to 15 years as a young kid for probably murder, even a serial murderer, we can let you out if you're 25. We can let you out because, not because you're rehabilitated, not because the offense wasn't that bad, but because we can. And that's got to go, all right? And the third thing is record sealing. I go through all of the effort to get a conviction, and they want to seal the convictions. They want to say, we want to seal convictions after 5 years. If I'm a mother, and thank God my kids are older, If I'm a mother, I want to know if a nanny has an assault conviction. If I'm an employer, I want to know if this person has been convicted of larceny or petty larceny. Or if, say, I'm not in a public school, but I got a private, like, teaching a tennis group. I need to know if this guy's a predator, a pedophile. Everything about the D.C. Council's focus is defendant-oriented. I'm oriented to these people, and the people of the district are as well.
You just walked through the.
This federal takeover that you talked about a little bit. Well, you talked a lot about it, but any special.
I don't have any special powers. I wish I did.
Can you also talk about where you stand on hiring prosecutors and judges?
I am. I am. I'm not going to bore you with the facts. Don't quote me on that. That was off the record. I can only hire during certain periods once there's been an ad or some kind of posting, and then I can hire. Okay, I'm doing it. I'm doing the best I can. The president has given me the permission to hire. This is an office that has been neglected, and I'll say it publicly. It's been neglected. With people signing contracts, they didn't know what they were signing. All right, it just kind of ran on its own. Not anymore. This is an office where nobody seemed to care that we were down 90 lawyers, 60 investigators, and paralegals. I do. And so my effort is to get people who want to work in the nation's capital, who want to work in the largest United States Attorney's office in the country, and the best office. Because we're not just federal prosecutors, we're local prosecutors. We get down and dirty in street crime. And that is what really motivates a lot of my prosecutors.
You just walked through the changes you'd like to see from the punitive aspects. What about preventative? Do you or the president plan to do anything to address the root causes of crime in D.C., such as truancy?
My job is to try to heal the victims and prosecute the criminal. Everybody else can deal with rehabilitating the individual. I honestly am not concerned about why they commit crimes. My concern is if they commit crimes. My concern is the victims of the crimes. That's my job as a U.S. attorney. Go ahead.
But just follow up on that quickly.
Is a felony one. And
Yeah.
now D.C. Superior Court judges are scheduling felony one trials in 2027, in part because there are 13 vacancies right now that's going to grow in January. The president has only nominated one D.C. Superior Court judge. It's a process that takes a while with Congress because of D.C.'s rules. Have you talked to the president about
Yeah.
this? Is the White House moving forward
Yes.
with more nominees? You're going to need these judges to
Yep.
get these done.
As recently as yesterday, I spoke with the president, and I have spoken to the president before about these vacancies. The president wants these vacancies filled as soon as possible because, like everyone in this room, it's common sense. It's not fair to the victims, to the families. It's not fair to the defendant. Why should the defendant who's charged with a crime have to live with a case for 3 years because there's not enough judges? We're all on the same page about what makes sense and what's fair. And so we're working on that. There's a whole thing with the Judicial Nominating Commission, and then they have to get approved, and then we have to get the Senate to approve.
When can we expect step one?
You can ask the Senate.
No, the names from the president. He has to know. When can we expect names? For
Soon. Very soon.
Weeks?
Soon.
FBI.
Okay, you're out of time? That means he's had enough. Goodbye. Thank you. I want you to report on
But
this.
you said it's guns. You said it's guns on the street that's causing this problem. Are you concerned that the DOJ's funding cuts to gun violence prevention programs undermine the effort?
Stop it. We are putting all kinds of resources onto the street.
But what about the gun aspect of the gun violence?
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Martin issued a press release hailing the drop in crime rates at the end of April. What changed?
It's never enough. This changed. This changed.
Uh-oh.
It's never enough. You tell these families crime has dropped. You tell the mother of the intern who was shot going out from McDonald's near the Washington Convention Center, oh, crime is down. You tell the kid who was just beat the hell and back with a severe concussion and a broken nose, crime is down. No, that falls on deaf ears. And my ears are deaf to that. And that's why I fight the fight. Thank you.
Facts. Judge Janine Pirro. Facts on facts. All right, here we go. Hannity. Hannity, y'all. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. What's going on? All right, here we go. Oh, we're back.
By stating the obvious one more time. The left in this country, from the politicians, so-called journalists, to partisan bureaucrats, deep state actors, are all big-time liars. They lie for the sake of power. They lie to advance their radical agenda. And most of all, they lie because they obsessively, compulsively, they just hate Donald Trump every second, every minute, every hour of every day. There is almost nothing they will not politicize. Now, that includes crime statistics. Whoa, they cook the books. Imagine that. Are you shocked at home? Now, many in the media mob are now falsely reporting that crime is down to a 30-year low in D.C. Joe Biden was peddling the same lie. But here is the data that they are trying to push as fact. Look at this headline, quote, D.C. police commander suspended, accused of changing crime statistics. And according to a report today in the Washington Free Beacon, this is not a one-off incident. Instead, quote, officials in Washington, D.C., they often pressure officers to falsify statistics in order to make the city appear a lot safer than it is. The police union chairman, he put it this way, quote, when our members respond to the scene of a felony offense where there is a victim reporting that a felony occurred, inevitably there will be a lieutenant or captain that will show up on the scene and direct those members to take a report for a lesser offense. He continued, quote, by changing criminal offenses, they avoid both the police department and the FBI from having to report a felony offense. And according to multiple reports, this is something that happens in almost every major blue city across the country, as if I'm informing you about something you didn't already know. And that is, there's no law, there's no order, there's no safety, there's no security. This is the result of defund, dismantle, no bail laws. But if you need another reason to doubt D.C.'s accounting, well, here is the city's police chief at a press conference earlier today getting confused by the term, so police chief, chain of command. Take a look.
Can you tell us what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
Simple question. How is that person in charge? That does not exactly inspire confidence, to say the least. And then to make matters worse, juvenile crime is through the roof, not only in D.C., which not only obscures criminal reporting, they cook in the books, but also severely limiting prosecution, sentencing for young, violent felons. You know, they're out there committing crime after crime after crime. Take a look at that screen. For example, according to police, juveniles accounted for more than 50% of all robbery arrests in 2024, about 60% of all carjacking arrests in 2025. Another glaring indicator that our nation's capital is facing a crime crisis is the city's murder rate. It is much harder to cook the books when there is a dead human being involved. Can't exactly hide that so easily. And sadly, Washington, D.C. has one of the highest murder rates, look at this, in the entire world. Look at this. 41 per 100,000, Uruguay 16.1. You know, we have, look at Baghdad. How is it possible in D.C. more than double the rate in Baghdad, almost triple, for crying out loud? Nigeria. Washington's murder rate is many times higher than Panama City, Panama, Bogota, Colombia, Mexico City, Havana, Cuba, El Salvador. Just about every other capital city on the planet. But according to many on the left, Trump is racist. He's a dictator for lawfully using the federal government to restore safety and security, law and order in our capital city so that we can save lives. What an interesting thought. Take a look.
You don't think more police make streets safer?
No, Joe. I'm a black woman in America. I do not always think that more police make streets safer.
When I go to D.C., I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid of losing my vote.
I'm not afraid of losing my wallet so much as I'm afraid that my children's freedom to breathe will be stolen in a world where climate change policy is non-existent.
You may recall at the Democratic Convention, I spoke one evening and I said that Project 2025 is Jim Crow 2.0. I can tell you right now exactly what is going to happen in so many of these instances because it's all right there. If you look in the history books, you see it.
My children's freedom to breathe will be stolen. Jim Crow 2.0. Then you have Mr. Fang Fang. Eric Swalwell had a slightly different take. He's now accusing Trump of being responsible for every new murder in the city. After all, he took over just a few hours ago. Now, this hysteria is nothing new. Frankly, it doesn't really matter. Here's the million-dollar question. Ask yourself at home. Why do Democrats care? Why don't they care about law and order, safety and security? Why are they staunch advocates of failed policies, defund, dismantle, reimagine the police, no bail laws? Why did they flat out lie to you about Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Mayorkas's open borders that allowed, let's see, known terrorists, murderers, rapists, other violent criminals, cartel members, gang members, drug dealers, all unvetted into our country, some 12 to 20 million. Nobody knows the real number. In fairness, not everyone on the left is actually on the same page. Some Democrats are even quietly now supporting President Trump. Shockingly, our old friend, Liberal Joe, well, actually made sense for once. I was shocked. Take a look.
I will just go back to the fact that, you know, the people that are cheering this on privately are not like right-wing Republicans, are not MAGA people. A lot of our friends are in the media, and also Democrats that worked on Joe Biden's campaign, that worked on other campaigns, that are saying, yeah, I'd like to feel safe walking around this city. If the federal government can be a positive partner in keeping the streets safe, while, again, forming a partnership with the D.C. police and not taking over, then at least the people I've spoken with that live in D.C. day in, day out, see this as a positive step.
If all his Democratic friends in D.C. wanted this, why didn't they demand Joe Biden do something about it? By the way, it's not only Liberal Joe. Here's one ABC reporter sharing her experience from living and working in our nation's capital. Take a look.
I can tell you firsthand here in downtown D.C. where we work, right here around our bureau, just in the past 6 months, there were 2 people shot. 1 person died, literally 2 blocks down here from the bureau. It was within the last 2 years that I actually was jumped walking just 2 blocks down from here. And then just this morning, one of my coworkers said her car was stolen a block away from the bureau. So we can talk about the numbers going down, but crime is happening every single day because we're all experiencing it firsthand while working and living down here.
All right. Does that seem like a safe city to you? Is that the best we can do in our nation's capital? And it's not just violent crime. Try walking into a CVS anywhere in D.C. Everything's under lock and key. Cars routinely broken into. Massive theft. Major problem. Look at your screen. Even our friend Sean Duffy, Transportation Secretary of our country, was robbed. A porch pirate stopped by his house. Just stole everything on his front porch. And let's not forget about the homeless crisis in D.C. I've seen it firsthand. And this is before the president was sworn in. Homeless encampments, open-air drug use, public defecation were commonplace, including inside our national parks and monuments and the front lawn of Union Station. There is some good news tonight. According to even fake news CNN, a superhero has come to the rescue. I don't think they meant this as a compliment. Take a look.
Donald Trump makes himself Batman, and the nation's capital is Gotham City. The president of the United States has declared himself crime fighter in chief, and he's taking over Washington's police force. It is a move that the D.C. mayor is calling unsettling and unprecedented. Now, Trump is painting it as an emergency, that D.C. is a hellhole.
Again, I'm not sure if CNN meant that as an insult, but President Trump most definitely is trying to save D.C., trying to make it more safe, whether woke residents like it or not. Now, first, the president is quickly clearing all homeless encampments across the city. He's giving these individuals 3 options. Take a look.
For far too long, these laws have been completely ignored, and the homelessness problem has ravaged the city. So D.C. Code 22-1307 and D.C. Municipal Regulation 24-100 give the Metropolitan Police Department the authority to take action when it comes to homeless encampments. So homeless individuals will be given the option to leave their encampment, to be taken to a homeless shelter, to be offered addiction or mental health services, and if they refuse, they will be susceptible to fines or to jail time. Again, these are pre-existing laws that are already on the books. They have not been enforced.
President Trump deploying the National Guard, other federal law enforcement, and en masse across the city, especially in vulnerable areas. During last night's operation, 23 suspected criminals were removed from the streets, including someone accused of murder. And this is really just day one. Now, this was the help of Washington, D.C., everything that they've needed in years to come. If they get the courage, the city's residents hopefully will one day thank President Trump. More importantly, lives will be saved. Hey, Sean Hannity.
Everybody right now will be on their best behavior in D.C. I'll tell you that much.
So Democrats are now facing a blue-collar revolt that could further crush them at the ballot box. The New York Times reports this. These are the voters who should scare Democrats most. They talked to working-class folks, some Biden voters in 2020 who flipped to Trump. They were fed up with the party's obsession with identity politics. One trucker puts it bluntly, quote, "It seemed like they were more concerned with DEI and LGBTQ issues and really just things that didn't pertain to me or concern me at all. They weren't concerned with really kitchen table issues." And after years of loyally backing Democrats, the Teamsters Union reportedly donating to battleground Republicans in the upcoming midterms, even Bernie's waving the warning flag.
And we have got to understand that the Democratic Party, in many, many respects, has turned its back on the working class of this country. And if Democrats want to win elections, they're going to have to stop taking money from billionaires and start responding to the needs of working people.
You know, Harold, Bernie actually refused to meet with the Teamsters, which I think shows it's not necessarily about politics, but about power, possibly. And it is this divide between the Democrats and working class voters could get worse if Mamdani wins, because his biggest supporters are affluent white liberals and not the working class.
Well, a couple of things. I think we can come to the Mamdani race in one moment. Sanders and Mamdani are one of a kind. They endorse each other, support each other. Elizabeth Warren as well. So they come from a side of the party that believes, or not my side of the party. And Mamdani is actually a socialist. So I don't consider him a Democrat. Two, in my lifetime, there have been 2 major realignments of the political party system. One was in '92 when Bill Clinton won. Democrats had not won in a while. He had a different message. He was different on some of the social issues, including capital punishment. He was even different a little bit on the abortion issue. He was against late-term abortions. In my lifetime, I'm 55, the first time a national Democrat had spoken like that. He then gets to office 5 years later. The first time the budget had been balanced at the federal level in 30 years. It still hasn't been balanced since. And then 2016, President Trump, what he was able to do in upending the way working class voters thought about the Republican Party, in the way even minority groups, which have traditionally gone for Democrats, how they thought about the Republican Party. As we sit here today, Democrats still haven't gotten the right message. They seem to be more cathartic than strategic in their thinking about how to go forward. Wouldn't it be nice if we actually offered ideas? I had some time one Saturday night, listened to an interview that Bernie Sanders had. I watched some of his rally in West Virginia. I clearly didn't have a lot to do for a little bit on Saturday. But it was interesting because I listened, and a lot of the things he said I agreed with in terms of his diagnosing of the challenges. But his answers, he didn't really seem to have any answers. A lot of it, when it came time, I thought give answers, he just criticized President Trump. I thought to myself, wouldn't it be great if Democrats would encourage administration to provide, since they want to shut the Department of Education, say instead of doing that, let's provide more funding for cities and states that are doing reform things, innovative things. You've talked about some of the things in the past, and including the state of Mississippi, which is doing remarkable things around K through 12 education. Cities that are doing things in the charter school space, even in the voucher space that's working. Let's reward those things that are working. Two, the biggest challenge, and one of the reasons that Mandami's doing well here in New York, is that he's talking about affordability and housing affordability. Why not give first-time home buyers who qualified, who are actually eligible, who have the income, give them bigger down payment assistance, and let's give them bigger tax breaks to be able to own a home. President Trump said no taxes on tips and overtime. I kind of like the instinct, but the real thing ought to be to help everybody that's earning $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, a little less. The first $50,000 of income should be tax-free for every American. That's what Democrats ought to be offering. The only way we're going to get back this group of voters and make this thing more competitive and have a chance to win again is if we stop attacking Trump and start addressing and listening to voters. It's a very simple thing. It's happened for now. We'll celebrate 250 years next year. Every politician that's ever won has actually listened to voters and tried to respond to their needs and aspirations. And we're not doing a good job of that right now.
Joey, I'm often reminded of this one time in 2015 or 16, right around when President Trump was running, he had a rally. And he says, this country is dying because of political correctness. And he gets this huge standing ovation. And it was one of those times where I thought, oh, he's tapping into something that has played out even to this day, to the point that now you have corporations relieved that they can get rid of their DEI programs. That universities are finally being brought back to some common sense. And I do think that that whole DEI woke agenda really did alienate workers in addition to the economics.
Sure it did. Yeah. I mean, you think about blue collar workers. When I hear that, I guess I think about like Midwesterners that are diehard, dyed-in-the-wool union workers, conservative in their home, and have supported Democrat candidates over the years because of the Democrats' strong stranglehold on unions. And I think that's one of the places where President Trump has really flipped the script. I mean, when you look at Democrats from policy, not just from the things they say, but from their policy, they've abandoned the assembly line for the disability line. They've abandoned those struggling to get ahead in life for those that are unwilling to get in line to begin with. They've abandoned Americans and imported their own voters. I mean, those are the policies they've supported at least over the last 10 years. What is so ironic about all of this is Democrats still hold on to this idea that you can use your identity to connect to voters. I mean, you look at Scranton Joe, Mandami comes in and he talks about all these things and he doesn't really want you to know too much about his past or how he gets his rent. Donald Trump is a billionaire, Ivy educated from Manhattan, and he connects with people in these small towns, not because he uses his past or his background or his identity, but because he says the things they want to hear and does the things they want done. It really is that simple.
It is simple.
And I don't know why they won't. Much like Harold, I don't know why Democrats want to take up some of those issues.
In the last 4 years, we talked a lot about the Democrats pushing forward on student loan forgiveness and climate change. And those were two main issues, I think, that alienated them from their workers.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dana.
Oh, thank you.
You know why? Because when you say blue collar, we think, who do you mean? It's more about who you aren't. You know, when you look at the Democrat Party, you don't see blue collar. You see the polar opposite, this ghastly experiment of identity extremism, luxury beliefs held together with rage speak and victimhood. Blue collar, it's not non-binary, trans, screaming about, the evils of white privilege and Gaza politics. They aren't blue collar, not spending their afternoons on TikTok or smoking weed at the park, demanding others to pay for their college loans. They work for a living. They raise families. When you look at it, I mean, it's funny. That's why the whole union thing seems so glaringly weird. Like, how is the union still there? Why are they still there? There's not a single issue that the Dems champion that resonates with, I'm going to say it, normal people. Party was hijacked by an unhinged, marginal, and mentally ill activist class. Friendless activists who see in their social media footprint power and status. Nothing blue collar, nothing real about them. And now you have, I think Trump is somehow approaching the unions in a way that says it's okay to come here. The water's warm. Get away from these weirdos. They're not good for you. They don't care about you. And I've said it a million times, and I think, Harold, one day you're going to agree with me. I think that identity politics has done more to destroy the Democrat Party than anything, because it reversed what we were about, the melting pot, which was about stressing unity over differences. And identity politics went the opposite direction. It leaned into the very thing that we were trying to escape, which was tribalism, tribes against tribes, and in violence. And so what we did was we pitted groups against each other into some zero-sum game, and you basically get like a political cannibalism. You know, where if I'm not high on this pyramid, I'm talking too much pyramid of being aggrieved, then you are, and you can't share. I'm going to shut up.
I don't know why you invoke my name. I don't disagree with you. I think identity politics.
I was just trying to get a rise out of you, Harold.
Let's give you the last word, Emily.
Well, I thought it was so telling. So the Teamsters General President, Sean O'Brien, he said that Bernie Sanders stopped talking to him. And he was being interviewed, and the host was like, well, when did he stop talking to you? And he said, it was when we did not formally endorse the Democrat Party. And it goes back to your earlier question of it is not about politics at all. Because if it was, then Bernie Sanders, presidential candidate, would have sat down and said, why aren't you endorsing me? He cold-shouldered him because he took it personally, and it was about power. And that kind of hubris is what the Democrats have been to the table, which is an expectation. Oh, we are the automatic labor coalition. And the reason that they're so salty and they've taken such offense is because they thought they didn't have to earn it, that they just got it, right? They got those votes. When you look at where their money is going, the Teamsters PAC, the fact that they spread money to the NRCC, individual GOP House candidates across all of these battlefield states, not just white rural areas, but super urban, dense, multi-ethnic areas, and even the Republican Attorneys General Association. So the worst thing the Dems can do right now is get mad that they were broken up with and not listen to the reason why.
We'll see what they do. Okay, ahead.
All right, here we go. Let's do some Mark Levin. Here we go.
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin Sunday. Welcome to the program. We have two great guests, Newt Gingrich and Mark Penn. But before we get to our guests, you know, folks, this auto pen issue is much bigger than people realize. You know, you have these people coming and going and pleading the Fifth Amendment or saying that Joe Biden, you know, he was the Einstein of our time and so forth, but you're basically getting stonewalled. We are, the American people. But this issue is so important. I decided to dig into it a little bit more, and people are missing one of the core constitutional problems with using the auto pen. And that is the requirement that the President of the United States be present. What are you talking about, Mark? A President of the United States can have a proxy sign a bill if he's present. He can have the auto pen sign the bill if he's present because of concerns of fraud. This issue of a presidential signature was a big deal at the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia. Why? Because the President of the United States is the executive branch. So when Congress does all that work and they present a bill to the President, they want to make sure it's the President who's signing it, number one. And number two, it's the President who's authorizing it, number two. Again, this is a big deal. There were times, you know, when we had to actually fly a bill to a president who was overseas because there's requirements in the Constitution, a certain period of time that you have to sign a bill. And they would fly a jet overseas to get the president to sign it. That's how crucial this is. That's how important this is. There's a great piece in the Syracuse University College of Law by Terry Turnipseed in their review. And he says a couple things that are important. But first, I want to cite Article 1, Section 7, Clause 2. Isn't this great stuff? Stay with me. Every bill which shall have passed the House of Representatives and the Senate shall, before it becomes law, be presented to the President of the United States. If he approve, he shall sign it. But if not, he shall return it with its objections to the House in which it shall have originated. If after such reconsideration 2/3 of that House shall agree to pass the bill, it shall be sent together with the objections to the other House, by which it will likewise be recommended, and if approved by 2/3 of the House, it shall become a law. If any bill shall not be returned by the President within 10 days, Sundays accepted, after it shall have been presented to him, the same shall be a law in like manner as if he had signed it, unless the Congress, by their adjournment, prevent its return, in which case it shall not be law. So let's summarize. It thus establishes 3 means by which a bill can become law. Number 1, by the signature of the president. Number 2, by the supermajority of the Congress. Number 3, by the lapse of 10 days, excluding Sundays, from presentment, assuming Congress is in session for the period, absent a veto and absent the signature of the president. Okay? The signature requirement can be understood as a safeguard against the abuse of executive power. James Iredell, leader of the North Carolina Federalists and a future justice of the Supreme Court, explained, the president must be personally responsible for everything. And by the way, personally responsible is in italics and it's in the original. A necessary means of ensuring such accountability was that all important advice and decisions be reduced to writing. Iredell's discussion of the rule of the president's advisors is particularly illuminating in this respect. Quote, the president is not to be assisted by a council, summoned to a jovial dinner perhaps, and giving their opinions according to the nod of the president, but the opinion is to be given with the utmost solemnity, in writing. No after equivocation can explain it away. It must forever after speak for itself and commit the character of the writer in lasting colors either of fame or infamy or neutral significance to future ages as well as the present. He must sign. Note that the writing requirement has 2 attributes. First, it must be public. And second, the writing is imputed to the writer himself, the president. In this matter, Iredell explained, the president who acts should be responsible for his conduct, following advice at his peril, than that there should be a danger of punishing any man for an erroneous opinion which might possibly be sincere. So, if presidential approval alone were enough, I approve it, the president says, this bill from Congress and so forth, to turn a bill into law, it would be sufficient for the president to inform Congress of his consent for the record. The president's signature alone authoritatively communicates his approbation. Thus, it is only by signing a bill that the president can turn it into law. The use of the auto pen to sign a bill outside the presence of the president or the use of a proxy outside the presence of the president is unconstitutional. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You don't have to take a delegate to the Constitutional Convention's word for it. How about this? When a question has come up to the Office of Legal Counsel, the Constitutional and Legal Brain Trust in the Department of Justice, we not only have 1, 2, 3, 4 opinions to that effect, we have more. We have a Rehnquist letter. We have a Scalia memorandum. We have another memorandum by the Deputy Assistant Attorney General of the Office of Legal Counsel. We have a memorandum by an Attorney General. We have another Rehnquist memorandum. And we have a memorandum on top of that. Saying what? Multiple prior legal opinions indicating the president could not use a non-presence proxy to sign legislation. That is, whether it's an auto pen or an individual, he must be present to sign legislation if he's not going to sign it himself. This is something that hasn't been discussed anywhere. Now, I don't expect most of the media to discuss it except here because they don't give a damn. But this is a crucial constitutional issue. It always has been. And it was a major issue at the Constitutional Convention. Who signs? What kind of signature? The presence requirement to prevent fraud. This goes back to the statute of frauds. I'm doing this off the top of my head, which I think is from the 1600s. When you sign a contract, typically you have to notarize it and so forth. They want to make sure there's no fraud. Well, same with the president, who is the executive branch. Only he has the power to sign a bill. Or he must be present if there's going to be an auto pen, which obviously didn't have at the founding, but it requires his presentment. Or if he has a proxy. But it even gets worse. Why are we here? I mean, this issue came up here and there in the past. That's why we have all these opinions from the Office of Legal Counsel, the Department of Justice. It came up under Obama, and of course he violated it. But they come up here and there. It's very rare. But with Joe Biden, it defines his presidency. What did he sign and what didn't he sign? Why? Because Joe Biden wasn't with it. Joe Biden wasn't cognitively with it. And so that's why this is a scandal on top of scandals. And of course, that's why the Democrat Party and their media are trying to ignore it desperately. But understand, if legislation was signed by an auto pen and Joe Biden wasn't present, that's unconstitutional. That's null and void. And there's even more than that. So we've talked about the 25th Amendment. I want to talk about it again. Because guess what? We have members of Biden's cabinet who want to run for president, like Buttigieg. Perhaps his former vice president who ran for president and failed. Maybe she wants to run too, Harris. But they violated their oaths of office. And this needs to be pinned on their shirts if they choose to run again. Because what they did was outrageous. The 25th Amendment, Section 1. In case of the removal of the president from office or his death or his resignation, the vice president shall become president. See, we didn't have any formal succession in the Constitution. This kind of provides at least some when it comes to the president and vice president. I won't bother you with Section 2 because it's not relevant. Section 3, whenever the president transmits to the president pro tem of the Senate, president of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, his written declaration, say Biden did, that he's unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, and until he transmits to them a written declaration to the contrary, such powers and duties shall be discharged by the vice president as acting president. Now, this has happened. Like when Ronald Reagan had surgery, or some of the others have had surgery, they sign this, they present it to the Senate and the House, president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, that they've temporarily conferred power on the vice president who becomes acting president, not president, acting president. But Section 4 is where I want to go. Whenever the vice president and majority of either the principal officers of the executive departments or of such other bodies Congress may by law provide, the cabinet secretaries, transmit to the president of the Senate, the president pro tem of the Senate, and the Speaker of the House, their written declaration that the president is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the vice president shall immediately assume the powers and duties of the office as acting vice president. Vice president and a majority of the cabinet gets together and says, you know, Joe is not cutting it. We've been in enough meetings with him. We have an obligation. We swore to uphold the Constitution of the United States. We have an obligation to inform the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House. There it is in the 25th Amendment. He's not cognitively able to do his job. Thereafter, when the President transmits to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House his written declaration that no inability exists, so Biden says, wait a minute, listens to his wife, the good doctor. She says, Joe, this is a coup. You need to write a letter under the 25th Amendment to the President of the Senate, to the Speaker of the House, and you need to tell them, my Vice President's wrong, the majority of the Cabinet's wrong. I reject what they're saying. He shall resume the powers and duties of his office unless the Vice President and majority of either the principal officers of the Executive Department or of such other bodies Congress may by law provide transmit within 4 days to the President pro tem of the Senate and the Speaker of the House their written declaration that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office. So Biden, he says, now I am able to do this. Okay, so the Vice President and a majority of the Cabinet again have the right within 4 days to write the President of the Senate, the Speaker of the House, well, he's wrong. We're right. And under those circumstances, the Vice President remains the acting president. Thereupon, Congress shall decide, while this is going on, shall decide the issue, assembling within 48 hours for that purpose, if not in session. If the Congress, within 21 days after receipt of the latter written declaration, again, that last letter, or if Congress is not in session, within 21 days after Congress is required to assemble, determines by 2/3 vote of both houses that the President is unable to discharge the powers and duties of his office, the Vice President shall continue to discharge the same as acting President. Otherwise, the President shall resume the powers and duties of his office. So Congress will decide who's right. 2/3 vote of both bodies. Either uphold it, that is the letter, that keeps the Vice President as the acting president and thereby removes the President of the United States, or it keeps the President as president and no longer is the Vice President acting Vice President. Well, there we are in the weeds, but that's your Constitution. So what happened here? Nothing. Nothing happened here. Nothing. Not a single cabinet member raised an objection. The vice president never raised an objection, as I said at the time. They've turned the 25th Amendment into a dead amendment. Yes, as it applies to surgeries and temporary situations, or perhaps an assassination or something like that. But when it comes to true disability and inability to do your job, where you're using the auto pen, as an example, or where the American people can see it, where world leaders can see it, where members of the Congress can see it, the media can see it, even though they conceal it. They destroyed the 25th Amendment for very crucial purposes. The main author of the 25th Amendment was a Democrat senator by the name of Birch Bayh out of Indiana. This term inability, he said, the word inability and the word unable, as used in Section 4, refer to an impairment of the president's faculties, mean that he's unable to either make or communicate the decisions as to his own competency to execute the powers and duties of his office. He said, we are questioning the disability of the president, the man who has his finger on the button. The issue needs to be decided immediately. Wow. Let's dig in further. The Fordham Law Review by John D. Furyk. There's a discussion between Birch Bayh, senator from Indiana, and the senator from New York, Robert Kennedy. Is it not true that the inability to which we're referring in the proposed amendment is total inability to exercise the powers and duties of the office? Asked Robert Kennedy. Birch Bayh says the inability that we deal with here is described several times in the amendment. The amendment itself has the inability of the president to perform the powers and duties of his office. It is conceivable that a president might be able to walk, for example, and thus, by the definition of some people, might be physically able. But at the same time, he might not possess the mental capacity to make a decision and perform the powers and duties of his office. We're talking about inability to perform the constitutional duties of the office of the president. Mr. Kennedy. And that has to be total disability to perform the powers and duties of the office? Mr. Bayh, Senator is correct. We are not getting into a position through the pending measure in which when a president makes an unpopular decision, he would immediately be rendered unable to perform the duties of his office. Mr. Kennedy, is it limited to the mental inability to make or communicate his decision regarding his capacity and mental inability to perform the powers and duties prescribed by law? Mr. Bayh, I do not believe that we should limit it to mental disability. It is conceivable that the president might fall into the hands of the enemy, for example. Mr. Kennedy, it involves physical or mental inability to make or communicate his decision regarding his capacity and physical or mental inability to exercise the powers and duties of his office. Mr. Bayh, the senator is correct. That is very important. I would refer the senator back to the definition which I read into the record at the time the Senate passed this measure earlier in the year. Mr. Kennedy, it was that definition that I was seeking to reemphasize. May I ask one other question? Is it not true that the inability referred to must be expected to be of a long duration, or at least one whose duration is uncertain and might persist? Mr. Bayh, here again, I think one of the advantages of this particular amendment is the leeway it gives us. We are not talking about the kind of inability in which the president went to the dentist and was under anesthesia. It is not that type of inability we are talking about. But the cabinet, as well as the vice president and Congress, are going to have to judge the severity of the disability and the problems that face our country. Mr. Kennedy, is it not true that what we are talking about here, as far as inability is concerned, is not a brief or temporary inability? Mr. Bayh, we're talking about one that would seriously impair the president's ability to perform the powers and duties of his office. Mr. Kennedy, could a president have such inability for a short period of time? Mr. Bayh, a president who was unconscious for 30 minutes when missiles were flying toward this country might only be disabled temporarily, but it would be of severe consequence when viewed in the light of the problems facing the country. So at that time, even for that short duration, someone would have to make a decision. But a disability which has persisted for only a short time would ordinarily be excluded. If a president were unable to make an executive decision which might have severe consequences for the country, I would think we would be better off under the conditions of the amendment. Mr. Kennedy, the senator realizes the complications for the people of this country and the world under those circumstances. Mr. Bayh, I do indeed. I also recognize our difficulty if we had no amendment at all. Now, that's fascinating to me. And it was as if we had no amendment at all when Joe Biden was president of the United States. And the cabinet and the vice president, they either collaborated or they conspired, affirmatively or by silence, to allow Joe Biden to be president of the United States when he was incapacitated. Being president of the United States is an extraordinarily difficult, complex, wearing, stressful, pressure-packed job. Even the healthiest men, young men, they age very quickly under the pressures of the office. It's the most important office in the world. If somebody had Joe Biden's mental capacity, you wouldn't make him CEO of any company, not even a small business. He shouldn't be driving a car. And I say this not to mock, I say this as a fact. This amendment was intended to protect us. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and every cabinet member chose not to comply with their oath of office and to leave the nation naked to somebody who had this incapacity. This is why we have the issue with the auto pen. This is why that investigation is crucial as well, because I suspect a lot of things were signed officially where Joe Biden wasn't present, where Joe Biden didn't authorize it. In either case, he would have to be present.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
All right, Levin. He never disappoints. You learned so much from that guy right there. All right, the 5, and this might be the last one because, come on.
So nobody drives the day quite like President Trump. He announced today a sweeping crime and homelessness crackdown in Washington, D.C., temporarily putting the feds in charge of the Metropolitan Police for 30 days. He is also deploying 800 National Guard troops to the streets. This is all part of his plan to liberate our nation's capital after a string of violent episodes that have left residents on edge. There was that brutal attack on a former DOJ staffer, and just this past weekend, shots rang out at a big gathering of teenagers in the Navy Yard neighborhood.
This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. You're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. And you all know people and friends of yours that happened. This dire public safety crisis stems directly from the abject failures of the city's local leadership. The radical left city council adopted no cash bail. We will bring in the military if needed. We're going to restore the city back to the gleaming capital that everybody wants it to be.
And here's a familiar face, U.S. Attorney for D.C., Janine Pirro, vowing to change the laws that protect violent young offenders.
We need to go after the D.C. Council and their absurd laws. The president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. These kids understand. I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court, and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Enough. It changes today.
And D.C.'s Mayor Muriel Bowser responding to the president, making the case that crime is down from previous years. Meanwhile, some in the media are suggesting there's a racial element to Trump's crackdown.
They seem to hold their harshest criticism sometimes for cities that are majority black and brown. Do you see that, and what do you think that means?
I think that I have been dealing kind of with this issue for a number of years. It's kind of easy fodder on the campaign trail.
All right, let me start with my former Washington, D.C. Capitol Hill neighbor, Charlie Hurt. It's one of these things that when you live in that city, you think, you wake up and you look at the Capitol, wow, it's so beautiful, it's so great. But you have that awareness around you, and it's gotten worse since I left.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that since if you look at the numbers and I'm always very skeptical about all the numbers, but just from 2012 to today, the murder rate itself has doubled. It's a serious problem. And it has been a serious problem for a long time. And I think that, and I love, and I agree, nobody can hold people's attention the way Donald Trump does. He used this press briefing to even pitch his new ballroom repeatedly. Yes. He never stopped selling. He keeps talking. He kept shouting out to the reporters in the room, I know you're all liberal, but you want to have a safe city. the place was absolutely jam-packed. I think in at least some small part because everybody in there does know the safety risks. And they do know people who have been mugged or shot or worse in the city. And the idea that you're going to hide behind this notion that, oh, this is an impossible problem that can never be fixed. And politicians, that's kind of like the last place they go when they don't want to face accountability for something, and they don't have any solutions for anything. They just say it's a problem that cannot be fixed. And we've heard this for years, for decades, about the Middle East. We've heard this for decades from both parties about the border. And Donald Trump came along and said, well, I'm not going to look at it the way you look at it and say that this is a problem that cannot be fixed. I'm going to actually try to fix it. And so then what did we wind up with in the Middle East? We wind up with the Abraham Accords, which I think are the most important steps towards actual peace in the Middle East that we've ever seen. And if he is able to extend them, they could become even more powerful in that regard. And then, of course, the border, he manages to walk in and fix the border in one day. So I'm kind of open-minded to the idea that, yeah, D.C. is a kind of a cesspool in a lot of ways. It's a dangerous city in a lot of ways, but I don't know, maybe thinking about it from a totally different approach might fix it.
Emily, you didn't have any type of coverage of this in April when the governor of New Mexico, who's a Democrat, called in the National Guard to help with crime in that city. And good for them because they needed to do something about it. What do you think the legal issues that some of the Democrats are bringing up, saying that this isn't allowed, this is not constitutional? Is that going to hold up?
Right. No, it won't, because I think President Trump has been very clear that he's exercising the specific powers afforded to him there in Washington, D.C. And the mayor acknowledged in reaching out to the attorney general saying, I will be here to collaborate with you. Now, granted, she also pushed back on a lot of issues there, but I see him actually staying squarely within the lane that the Constitution afforded him and meant, by the way, Washington, D.C. to be, which was under federal rule. It was never supposed to be a state adjacent like it has become now. Frankly, that's certainly not what the framers intended. So how did we get here? Let's talk about it. So the laws and policies in D.C., like the Youth Rehabilitation Act and the age of criminalization being 18 and family court diversion, they have been totally distorted. The aim was to protect children from themselves. But we need to be protected from these children.
Yeah.
The rate of recidivism for them alone, for these kids, is almost double that of adult recidivism rates. And they are disproportionately committing these violent crimes. So the mayor says crime is down in D.C. But here are the facts. If D.C. was a state, it would be the highest homicide rate. It is 6 times higher than here in New York City. In 2025 alone, there have been 1,600 violent crimes and almost 100 homicides, and vehicle theft is up almost 600% in just 5 years alone. And a final note about the violence and the classification, because you hear a lot from the left when they argue or throw out criticism when they're not saying that things are racist or unable to be fixed. And it's always about, well, it's non-violent or it's a misdemeanor. And all of those classifications have been sort of summarily, magically introduced into the conversation, and it is not based in reality. Talk to any criminal law attorney or a victim or a family member and tell them carjacking's not violent, or these burglaries en masse are not violent, or stalking is not violent, or these burglaries are a misdemeanor, and they will argue with you every step of the way. So DC is the first city, and plenty more will take, I think, this example, which will be whip everyone into shape, the prosecutors, the judges, the law enforcement, get the kids out of this family court. Bravo, President Trump.
There's a young Democrat named Yemisi Egbobole that I've been getting to know a little bit. And
How's he doing?
She's great, and you're going to like her. She's probably going to be on your show sometime.
She's great.
She's great. And she wrote a piece for Fox Opinion today, basically, Harold, saying that Democrats should not downplay the crime issue, especially for minority neighborhoods, because it's on their minds and they would like it fixed too, and that maybe they're going to be okay with somebody trying to get a handle on it.
Right. So good to be back around the table. I try not to put race in everything. And in this instance here, Greg has said something many, many times before about crime. And we were talking about the border in the context about why does the issue have to be, but you're not at all, Dana, but why do we have to talk about race, whether it's a Democrat or a Republican doing it. No one wants their pocketbook stolen. No one wants their kids attacked. No one wants their sister or mom raped. And no one wants their grandfather shot while trying to go get on a train. I read a little while ago that Union Station in D.C. is a place where some of the National Guard will be deployed first. And some other neighborhoods. I've been in the train station early in the morning there in Union Station, and it's trying to navigate a crazy place as you're walking through there. I can imagine if I had my kids with me during that time. I think Democrats need to understand, and Republicans, but Democrats, just to put the politics on it, when President Trump talked about the border during the campaign, and Democrats, for whatever reason, some of the national Democrats and some big voices in the party, particularly the president and some around him, didn't seem to take that as seriously. That was an issue that hurt us, but more importantly, it was an issue that hurt the country. The crime issue, I heard Kash Patel today say during the press conference, and he was right, that the murder rate has come down. The Mayor Bowser has said the murder rate has come down. But when you live in communities or you live in neighborhoods where crime is taking place, those statistics mean things. But if you're worried about your kids, worried about yourself, worried about your families, you want someone, and you're expecting government to step up to the plate. I'd say one thing to everybody, New Yorkers, people live in Maryland, people live in Colorado, people live in Illinois, Florida, Georgia. We need to end cash bail. This no cash bail thing has not worked. Now, there were many who thought it might work because you're going to let people were going to jail to they were spending more time waiting for their trial than they were if they got convicted of something. But we're seeing now that the thing doesn't work. There ought to be a bipartisan effort to say, look, let's end it now. Whether you're a Democrat that supported it in the past, it just didn't work. And we ought to be willing to admit that. Any Republican or Democrat has an idea that doesn't work, just admit when it doesn't work. This one has not worked. We should get away from it. Two, our Fox reporter, I can't think of his name, young guy, I see him on Brett Baer's show a lot, and I've seen him on your show in the morning. He asked, I think, the first or second question of President Trump during the press conference. And I think it's a legitimate question. He said, Mr. President, will you be willing to take this to other cities? And the president said, yes. I hope that this template works, that we find a way to take it to Chicago and Baltimore and Memphis and Denver and Atlanta and other places that may need it, where you have communities that are wrecked by crime. And then two, he raised a question, which I'm totally opposed to the legalization of any drugs. And apparently President Trump and his team are looking at reclassifying marijuana. And the reporter asked, how do you reconcile that if people think that could be a gateway to some other things that these kids are doing? And I thought my former seatmate here and my pal here who talked about young people, I wouldn't be surprised if there were not drugs that are a part of that, as well as these young people are holding guns and handling guns and committing crimes with guns. It was interesting. I didn't realize you couldn't prosecute a kid unless they kill somebody with the gun or rape somebody with the gun. If they have a gun or they use it, that has to change. And I hope that the U.S. attorney there, my friend, is able to change that. And finally, again, I hope that people want to inject race in this stuff. Don't. Crime happens. I don't care whom it happens to. I'm not happy if it happens to a Democrat. I'm not happy if it happens to a Republican. I thought the president was trying to was cute with words about you liberals. Liberals don't like crime. Conservatives don't like crime. Blacks don't like crime. Whites don't like crime. Let's get rid of it. And that's why I was pleased and encouraged by what the president did today.
Greg, of course, you're going to comment on whatever you want, but let me set up one thing that occurred to me today.
Ooh, exciting.
Is that President Trump isn't doing this for himself. Right, so he lives in the White House. He has car service through the Secret Service. He gets to go to Mar-a-Lago. He goes to his place. What's it called? The nice place, Bedminster. And so it's like he's wanting to make the city better for other people. And he's like, okay, well, I have the power to try to help. So he says, we might as well give this a shot.
Most of the big questions that he addresses are like that. Have you noticed that? Whether it is the border or the Middle East or this, it's like, he'll look at war and you'll think, oh, he's so simplistic about saying what a waste. When he looks at war, he says, what a waste. All these people dying. They could be working and making money. That's how he thinks. And he's like, all these people dying, carjacking, that's bad. And all the academics are like, oh, he's so simple. Sorry, dude. He's right. You know what? I used to look at life, Dana, as something that everything would go my way. And when things go wrong, that would be the exception. I realize that it's the opposite, that life is actually a series of inconveniences. And when something goes right, that you should be grateful. That's Trump. You know, if you look at Trump expecting a smooth ride, you're insane, right? But if you accept his brash, confrontational, unpredictable style as the system, when you get these big gifts, whether it is the closed border or the Abraham Accords, you go, wow, that's something else. And you're grateful for it. Trump is the human embodiment of life itself. in that it's challenging, it's unpredictable, it's a bit wild, it could be scary. But when things go right, it's wonderful and it's huge. I wasn't planning on saying that, but you asked me that question. Can I talk about crime?
Do whatever you want.
All right. The homicide rate is 6 times higher in D.C. than in New York City. It's 18 times higher than Havana. Carjacking is up 547% from 2018 to 2023. The D.C. police commander was suspended for changing crime stats to make it look like they had dropped. They would report something that involved a gun or a knife as a felony assault because the FBI uniform crime system doesn't report felony assaults. This is the nation's capital. This is where a lot of people come because it's our capital. It's like going to Disneyland and their oldest, greatest ride is a bottomless pit with spikes in the bottom. It's like you get there and you go, this is what the country's about. Now, imagine if we didn't care at all. If the adults just went home and got cigarettes or just left home, got cigarettes, didn't come back. That would be racist. But if you decide to stay and save the cities from this progressive ideology that only makes it unlivable for everybody but politicians, then that's racist too. So if you stay and help, it's racist. If you choose to leave, white flight, that's racist too. But why can't you leave if you're not wanted? How was that racist? Turns out that's the Democrat Party. People are leaving that. They're leaving colleges that are anti-Semitic. They're leaving cities that are dangerous. Turns out the intolerant few causes the many to leave. You notice this. No cash bail. You bring that up. You brought this up a lot. Probably, a dozen times in the last 2 years?
At least.
Everybody agrees. Why doesn't it change? We need to ask, why is no cash bail still around? Who is it profiting? Who is it benefiting if everybody agrees? And why can't we just stop it? There's something going on there.
President should executive order that too.
Amen.
All right.
Whoa. Whoa.
Fox News alert, President Trump meant what he said to the nation at this hour yesterday. And now it is all happening. Brand new video into Fox News. He took action to crush violent crime to a new level. That goes today with the arrival, as you see in the center of your screen, and this brand new video, National Guard troops arriving to our nation's capital after our commander-in-chief ordered them to stand alongside the city's law enforcement. The District of Columbia's police force is now under federal control. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth on the mission.
We're going to work right alongside our law enforcement partners as force multipliers. This is what the American people voted for. If our capital city is a mess, if we can't control our capital city, then what does the rest of the country look like? And what signals does the rest of the country take from that?
Democrats are shocked over this. D.C.'s police union is backing President Trump. The chairman of that union said, "We stand with the president in recognizing that Washington, D.C. cannot continue on this trajectory. Crime is out of control and our officers are stretched beyond their limits." And keeping the victims of D.C.'s outbreak of violence front and center, the mom of a congressional intern who was killed in crossfire of a drive-by shooting in D.C. Watch.
When I heard the news today, and he mentioned my son, not by name, and mentioned the others who have been victims of violent crime, I was so happy. Things will change so other people are safe when they go visit D.C. or work in D.C. President Trump was 100% spot on with what he said.
Per usual, Democrats are united against President Trump's actions to fix what the Dems broke.
What the president did this morning was political theater. His idea in federalizing the police force of D.C. ignores the reality. They are making dramatic progress in reducing violent crime in D.C.
This looks to me like an emergency which is manufactured.
This action today is unsettling and unprecedented.
Well, the Dems have it right in one way about theater. It's living like a horror film. Justice correspondent David Spunt is in Washington, D.C. So, David, how is all of this laying out this push against the outbreak of violent crime?
Hi, Harris. Good to be with you. We know right now Attorney General Pam Bondi and her senior team meeting with D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and the police chief Pamela Smith. Now, this is the first time the D.C. Police Department has been under direct DOJ control.
When you have the DOJ and President Trump driving behind this mission, we are going to clean up Washington, D.C., and we're going to do it the right way, the lawful way, and we're going to make sure Washington, D.C. is safe.
U.S. Attorney Janine Pirro for D.C. says the no-cash bail policy around for decades that allows people out of custody based on risk assessment is the chief problem, instead of actually paying money to get out on bail or bond. Violent crime in the nation's capital down 26% since last year, according to the city's own statistics online. But one of those behind the statistics reportedly put on leave earlier this year over allegations of fudging some numbers.
Whether crime is up or down, you know, they want to pat themselves on the back and say, gee, it's great. It's not as bad as it used to be. It is horrific.
Harris, according to the D.C. Home Rule Charter, the police department is under DOJ control, but only for 30 days. That could, though, be extended if the Senate and House enact into law a resolution authorizing such an extension. D.C. Muriel Bowser not given a heads up about the move by the Trump administration before the president made the announcement, and said this of people that are concerned about the president's ability to have the police department controlled by the DOJ.
If people are concerned about a president's ability to have the MPD police department be responsive to the Department of Justice, the time to address that is when we're talking about statehood for D.C.
Harris, I watched Bowser's entire news conference yesterday. Clearly, she seemed frustrated by the move, but her overall attitude was there's not much that she can do given the Home Rule Charter language. She said overall, even though she wasn't consulted, she was not surprised. And she said basically there's nothing that she can do because it's written in black and white, Harris.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, I have never interviewed her. I did watch that conference as well as you did. It'll be interesting to see where she falls on things as the president begins to clean it up in her district. I mean, it's hard to talk against success since she's kind of on the fence, it would seem, right now. Good to see you, David. Thank you.
Thanks,
Phil
Harris.
Holloway, former assistant district attorney, former police officer, also an advisor to the Oconee County, Georgia Sheriff's Department, and Chris Swecker, former assistant FBI director. Gentlemen, it is great to have you both. Look, U.S. Attorney for D.C. Janine Pirro said crime is horrific. I said it must feel like the people there are living and starring in a horror film that they want to end. Then you bring in President Trump's idea. Chris, I want to talk to you from the FBI perspective of this kind of support against violent crime.
Well, yeah, let's start with the fact that there are parts of D.C. that are an absolute war zone. Now, they can talk about reduced crime, you know, in the last year. I take that with a healthy dose of skepticism, given that we know at least one police commander has been cooking the books. And that's not terribly unusual, unfortunately. Some departments have learned how to game the system. Now, also, you have to look at per capita crime per 100,000 residents versus the raw number of crimes committed. And you also have to look at the fact that the police have been backed off on the streets. They're not, you know, they're not willing to make the arrests in some cases, and witness the police union backing these measures 100%. So you can mark my words, crime will go down with the National Guard out on the street as a visible deterrent, with federal agents out there working next to local police officers. They will get the worst of the worst off the street, and they will deter crime. And you will see crime go down in the next 30 days and the extensions, because mainly they will get the worst of the worst incarcerated with some aggressive prosecution from Janine Pirro.
And I appreciated the detail and the way that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth was talking about the mission, because he said, look, we are force multipliers. So what they're doing is they're coming in and they're just going to do what works with more people. I mean, that can only make things better. Phil, I'm coming right to you. I want to get to this for you to respond to. President Trump is also floating the idea that he could take similar action in other major cities across America. Let's watch.
You look at Chicago, how bad it is. You look at Los Angeles, how bad it is. We have other cities that are very bad. New York has a problem. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this. And this will go further. I'm going to look at New York in a little while. And if we need to, we're going to do the same thing in Chicago.
Talk to me, Phil, about the law and what the president seeks to do potentially.
Well, great to be with you, Harris. Listen, the president is not wrong. All of these cities do have very significant crime problems, and there's lots that he can do in the District of Columbia because, of course, that is a federal jurisdiction. New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, other places are not federal jurisdictions, but there are federal assets in place. We already see in the context of immigration enforcement that federal authorities are going out into the communities and they are making a difference. So I don't think the president can outright federalize law enforcement per se in a city like Atlanta where I'm sitting, but there are a lot of things the federal government can do, including we can fix how crime statistics are reported. That's a big part of this problem. I've been in the criminal justice system for almost 40 years now, and I can tell you the dirty secret about crime reporting is that it's based on the honor system, and so often these bureaucrats and even politicians have no honor, Harris. They cook the books. They take things like a mugging or an armed robbery out on the streets and they will call it a theft. Or if someone gets shot at a domestic violence incident, they call it a domestic violence incident rather than a aggravated assault or even an attempted murder. So it's all in how these politicians and these bureaucrats attempt to make themselves look better so that they can qualify for maybe federal grants or even just get votes from the voters. It's all a big scam, and it needs to change, and we need some federal guidelines, I think, in place to guarantee that law enforcement reports crime statistics properly so that American citizens can know what's going on in these cities.
Yeah, so it's interesting. The law enforcement reporting then is also dictated, I would think, in part, Chris, by their higher-ups, the people who are truly politicians in the mayor's office, so on and so forth. I mean, we would need all of the details to point some fingers, but it's not just coming out of nowhere. And the collateral damage of all of that is the people living the truth of what crime really feels like and is in the streets. Your last quick thought.
Yeah, police departments are under tremendous pressure to reduce crime. That's their job. And that results in what was just mentioned by Phil, is they essentially cook the books. This has been the dirty secret for quite a while now. The other problem is that many of the systems, the blue cities, haven't updated their systems under the new system, which is called the National Incident-Based Reporting System, NIBRS. And so they're estimating their criminal numbers based on earlier numbers, so they can put the numbers wherever they want to put them. The bottom line is, and this has been proven from the 90s during the crack epidemic when crime was off the charts, much like today, is proactive policing and putting the worst of the worst in jail and having zero tolerance policies in both arrests and prosecutions will reduce crime, particularly those recidivist offenders that are responsible for a large proportion of those crimes. Within 30, 60 days in D.C., they'll be put away.
And full stop. Perfect. Gentlemen, thank you. Great to have you both.
Thank you, Harris. Great to be here.
We want to go to breaking news now. We are watching this live news conference on the active, and I'm going to ask my team.
Partners who work with us every day, and this is the time for us to do it. I won't go into the details and the devils of our operational plan at this point, but you will see Metropolitan Police Department working side by side with our federal partners in order to enforce the efforts that we need around the city.
Can you tell us what the chain of command is now?
What does that mean?
Well, is it Pam Bondi speaking to the mayor, speaking to you, or how does this work?
So the executive order is clear. The president has requested MPD services, and our home rule charter outlines the process. The president designated Attorney General Bondi as his proxy to request services through me.
But does the Attorney General have the authority to implement changes at MPD or just request changes?
The executive order is pretty clear, and so is the law. The president has the authority by virtue of the statute to request services. Our organizational chart, how we do business, how we fund the police, how we make changes, none of that has changed.
So you were saying hiring, firing?
Yes.
Mayor Bowser, you've had some time to think about it since yesterday. How do you sum up how this has played out, where you didn't know about this before it was announced?
What I'm focused on is the federal surge and how to make the most of the additional officer support that we have. We have the best in the business in MPD and Chief Pamela Smith to lead that effort and to make sure that the men and women who are coming from federal law enforcement are being well used, and that if there's National Guard here, that they're being well used, and all in an effort to drive down crime. So how we got here, or what we think about the circumstances right now, we have more police and we want to make sure we're using them.
Are you concerned at all that some of the police that are out there are FBI agents who are assigned to offices who are now patrolling the streets at night?
I'm going to rely on the police chief to work with her counterparts to make sure people are being deployed in a useful way.
Could you explain the nature of the relationship
It's going to be, she's going to work hand in hand with the people that the president has designated.
Just a couple more. And Chief, we hear in some other jurisdictions, the National Guard are made up primarily of police and law enforcement. Do we know the makeup of the DC?
I wouldn't be able to say that offhand. I think they come from all backgrounds.
Are there a lot of law enforcement?
There are a number of Metropolitan Police Department and officers from other law enforcement outfits, firefighters, and others who make up our DC National Guard, because that's who makes up our city.
And does the National Guard have the power to make arrests on a day-to-day basis? How does that work?
No, the National Guard is not law enforcement. And so, as the chief said, we regularly, because what we do in our city, work with the National Guard, and we'll do the same, that they will coordinate through the Metropolitan Police Department for any services that they're providing during this time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.